Tyianna Alexander, who is also known as Davarea Alexander, was a 28-year-old black trans woman. Tyianna was shot to death in Chicago on January 6th. On social media, friends of Tyianna posted that she had good energy and a beautiful light, with one friend saying, "I loved everything about her." Said another friend, "This lady was nothing but life, encouragement, motivation, and fun."
Samuel Edmund Damian Valentine, a transgender man, was killed on January 9th in Trujillo Alto, Puerto Rico. Samuel was looking forward to starting a new year. On January 1st, he posted on his Facebook, "A new year to come, grateful for all the experiences who taught me how strong we really are. To life, to good and bad, and for all justice that is forth to come." He also spoke out against violence in Puerto Rico, expressing his hope for a Puerto Rico without killings.
Bianca Muffin Bankz, a black transgender woman, was shot to death in Atlanta, Georgia on January 17th. On Friday, January 29th, Bianca's friends and the Trans Housing Coalition, THC, held a vigil outside of her apartment to remember her, said THC's founder and co-director, Jessie Pratt Lopez. Muffin was just blossoming into herself.
Dominique Jackson, a black transgender woman, was shot to death in Jackson, Mississippi on January 25th. According to her Facebook, Dominique was the mother of the House of Red and the founder of the Lady Red Incorporated. Friends are remembering her on social media, with one saying, "My heart is heavy," and another sharing, "I'm at a loss for words."
50 Bands, a 21-year-old black transgender woman, was shot to death in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on January 28th. Friends of 50 Bands and advocates said her name as they released balloons to remember her life. On Facebook, one friend shared, "When are we as a community going to do something?"
Alexus Braxton, also known as Kimmy Icon Braxton, a 45-year-old black trans woman, was killed on February 4th in Miami. Braxton was a hairstylist and active on social media, posting regularly. One of her most recent posts said, "They can't stop my shine." Friends and family held a balloon release to honor Alexus's life on February 8th, been remembering her on social media, with one saying, "I'm beyond devastated."
China Carrillo, who also went by China Cardenas, was killed in the morning hours of February 18, 2021, in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania. Not much is known at the time about China's personal life. One of her social media posts suggested she would have celebrated her 25th birthday just weeks before her death. China was very young and did not deserve to have her life cut short, said HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative, Tori Cooper.
Siblings Jeffrey J.J. Bright, a 16-year-old trans boy, and Jasmine Kennedy, a 22-year-old non-binary person, both from Ambridge, Pennsylvania, were killed on February 22nd. Jeffrey was a student at Ambridge High School while Jasmine worked at FedEx, according to their Facebook page. Both siblings were active in PRISM, a nonprofit organization for the LGBTQ youth of Beaver County, Pennsylvania. JJ is part of our PRISM family, PRISM shared on their Facebook. JJ was a beautiful person with the biggest and brightest smile. PRISM describes Jasmine as a sweet, shy, and artistic soul, and according to the trans family of NWPA, Jasmine loved to dance. They cared deeply for their friends. On February 23rd, PRISM held a candlelight vigil in memory of Jasmine and Jeffrey. Jenna Franks, a 34-year-old white transgender woman, was killed in Jacksonville, North Carolina in February. Jenna was part of the Onslow County LGBTQ+ Community Center family. She was remembered on Facebook by friends and family as sweet and a rock star. Dennis Biancuso, executive director for the Onslow County LGBTQ+ Community Center, described Jenna as a beautiful soul and a breath of fresh air.
Diamond Kyree Sanders, a 23-year-old black transgender woman, was shot to death in Cincinatti, Ohio on March 3rd. Diamond was described by a family member on social media as beloved, and an obituary shared by her family describes many loving memories. She valued her family and enjoyed spending time with them. As a child, she would say, "I love my whole family." The obituary states, In her adult life, Diamond was a traveler, known to be in New York City one week and New Orleans the following week, also according to her obituary.
Rihanna Pardo, a 26-year-old Latina trans woman, was killed on March 17th in Los Angeles. A former colleague of Rihanna's from Starbucks shared as co-workers they had an amazing time together. According to The Advocate, the Trans Latina Coalition and Rihanna's family and friends held a candlelight vigil in her memory on March 20th. Rihanna was such a beautiful young person who wanted to live her life and be herself, said Trans Latina Coalition President Bambi Sokeldo.
Jada Peterson, a 29-year-old black trans woman, was killed on April 4th in Charlotte, North Carolina, as family and friends have been remembering her on social media, with her sister sharing, "You are going to be truly missed, and once again, we love you always." Local advocates in Charlotte held a vigil on April 9th to remember her.
Dominique Lucious, a 26-year-old black transgender woman, was shot and killed on April 8th in Springfield, Missouri. According to her Facebook account, Dominique was a fan of the TV show Empire. On social media, many of Dominique's friends expressed their love for her and how much she will be missed. One friend shared, "Many don't get to live their authentic truth. You were fierce, glam, and honey gorgeous. I love you now, tomorrow, and forever."
Remy Fennell, a black transgender woman in her 20s, was shot to death on April 15th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Remy's aunt said she was a vibrant young transgender woman who was just trying to make it and was doing it. She started her own business, graduated from cosmetology school. She had left her mark on the hair industry.
Tiara Bankz, a 24-year-old black transgender woman, was killed in Chicago, Illinois on April 21st, 2021. According to a news report, Tiara was sitting alone in her Ford Fusion when the shooter approached the vehicle and shot Tiara multiple times. Tiara was pronounced dead at the scene. At just 24 years old, Tiara had her whole life ahead of her, and, instead, we are remembering her because of the ongoing fatal violence against transgender people, said HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative, Tori Cooper.
Natalia Smut, a 24-year-old black and Puerto Rican transgender woman, was killed on April 23rd in Milpitas, California. Natalia was a celebrated drag artist in the San Jose LGBTQ community, with local community members describing her as a motivating and creative spirit, with captivating performances and a love for advocacy within the community. Friends and community members organized a vigil for Natalia, with more than 100 people attending.
Iris Santos, a 22-year-old Latinx transgender woman, was killed in Houston, Texas on April 23, 2021. Iris was sitting at a picnic table enjoying a meal when an unidentified suspect approached and shot her. Iris was taken to a local hospital where she was later pronounced dead. Iris was so young with so many things to look forward to, said Tori Cooper, Human Rights Campaign Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative. Iris was simply minding her own business, sitting and eating when her life was abruptly cut short.
Tiffany Thomas, a 38-year-old black transgendered woman, was killed on April 24th in Dallas, Texas. Tiffany is being remembered as someone who had a big heart, who was funny and stayed laughing, and who was stylish.
Keri Washington, a 49-year-old black transgender woman, was killed on May 1st in Clearwater, Florida. Our community is yet again in mourning as a result of senseless acts of violence against transgender and gender nonconforming people, said Tori Cooper, HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative. Keri was at least the fourth transgender woman killed in less than 10 days, each of them black or brown. We urge everyone to end the stigma against transgender people and to destroy the roots of transphobia and racism that fuel this violence.
Jaira D'Alto, a 42-year-old transgender woman, was killed on May 2nd in Boston, Mass. A well-known and beloved transgender advocate for survivors of domestic and sexual violence, and a member of the ballroom community, Jaira was a member of the House of Balenciaga and was a founder of the Berkshire Transgender Day of Remembrance and Berkshire Pride Festival. She shared on Twitter, "I am the mother who raised the children whose rainbow sparkled too brightly and blinded their birth moms. I know what gratitude in the eyes of a young person who finally feels seen looks like. And for me, that's enough."
Whispering Wind Bears Spirit. Whispering Wind Bears Spirit, a 41-year-old Indigenous non-binary person, was shot in York, Pennsylvania on May 3rd and died early on May 4th. They often shared photos of meaningful quotes on their Facebook. Friends and family are remembering them on Facebook, with one sharing, "You are missed," and another remembering Whisper Wind as a beautiful and kind soul.
Sofia Vasquez, a 36-year-old Latina transgender woman, was shot and killed in Georgia on May 4th. Sofia was a part of Community Estrella, a community that works to support transgender people in the Atlanta area. She is remembered as the kindest person on the earth and as someone who was truly beautiful inside and out.
Danika Danny Henson, who also went by Prince Daniel and Nia Da Dan on Facebook, a 31-year-old black transgender woman, was shot and killed in Baltimore, Maryland on May 4th. Henson also may have identified as gender fluid, according to her family. Henson had just begun transitioning. One family member shared that Henson always had a big heart, there was love behind everything. On May 6th, friends, family, and the Baltimore Safe Haven hosted a candlelight and balloon release vigil to remember Henson.
Serenity Hollis. A 24-year-old black transgender woman was shot and killed in Albany, Georgia on May 8th. Her mother said that the person that's responsible has no idea what they took from us. I absolutely want to see that justice is served.
Oliver Ollie Taylor, a 17-year-old white trans boy, died on May 19th after being kidnapped and shot on May 12th in Gervais, Oregon. He was a student at Gervais High School, where he was involved in the Gervais Future Farmers of America organization. The high school held a vigil to remember Oliver on May 20th. Oliver is remembered as an amazing child with a quirky sense of humor who impacted so many people.
Thomas Hardin, a 35-year-old black transgender woman, was killed on May 2nd in York, South Carolina. According to local news, friends have shared that Hardin identified as a woman, continued to use the name Thomas, and used both he and she pronouns. Friends remembered Hardin as someone who always kept you laughing. A funeral service was held on May 12th. Sadly, not much is currently known about Hardin's life.
Poe Black, who also went by Oliver Jackson and Legion, was a 21-year-old transgender man who was killed in Nyland, California, in an area called Slab City in early May. His body was found on May 11th. Poe was originally from Nashville, Tennessee, and often posted about disability rights and Black Lives Matter on social media. He was also an artist, with several online stores where he displayed and sold his art.
E.J. Boykin, who also went by Nova Watson, was killed in Lynchburg, Virginia on June 14th. He had just recently celebrated his 23rd birthday on June 10th and was studying at Morgan State University. It appears E.J. was also the parent of a young child. One of Boykin's friends told HRC that he was loved and liked by everybody. He was one of those people that was just good vibes and energy.
Adalyn Evans, a 24-year-old black transgender woman, was found dead in March in Port Arthur, Texas. Initially investigated as suspicious, as of July, her death is being investigated as a homicide. Adalyn was originally from Beaumont, Texas, and had recently spent time in Port Arthur, Beaumont, and Houston. Nobody, no parent, should have to go through this, said Louis Balka, Adalyn's grandmother, in March. You will always be in my heart. Sadly, not much is currently known about Adalyn's life. Taya Ashton, a 20-year-old black trans woman, was killed in Suitland, Prince George's County, Maryland, on July 17. According to social media, friends and family held a vigil and balloon release to remember Taya. Taya was just at the beginning of her life, a life that she deserved to live to its fullest, said Lindsay Clark,
Associate Director of the Transgender Justice Initiative. Black trans women continue to be killed in this country, and this violence is unacceptable.
Shy Vanderpump, a 23-year-old black trans woman, was killed in Trenton, New Jersey on July 30th. According to the Garden State Equality, Shy was a fierce LGBTQ advocate. A GoFundMe remembered Shy as being known for her style and love of family. As someone who had a heart of gold and who loved to dress, smile, and see everyone happy and smiling.
Tiara Marie Lewis, a 36-year-old black trans woman, was killed in Cleveland, Ohio on June 12th. Due to misgendering and misnaming from local officials and a lack of media coverage, her death was not reported until recently. According to reporting from the Buckeye Flame, Tiara Marie moved to Cleveland last year for a fresh start. One friend remembered Tiara Marie as a spirited girl. One day she would have purple hair, one day pink hair, and always an outfit to go with those colors.
Miss Coco, a 44-year-old trans woman of color, was killed in Dallas, Texas on August 7, 2021. According to New Trans Movement, she was a well-known smart girl with a big bubbly personality. Coco was a happy person and proud to be living her truth. Sadly, not much beyond this is publicly known about Miss Coco's life at this time.
Pooh Johnson, a 25-year-old black trans woman, was killed in Shreveport, Louisiana on August 23, 2021. Johnson was an accomplished makeup artist under the name Titanzer. Sadly, not much beyond this is publicly known about Johnson's life at this time.
Desaya Monet, a 32-year-old black transgender woman, was fatally shot in Chicago, Illinois on September 6th. The epidemic of violence plaguing the transgender community, particularly black transgender women, is appalling, said Tori Cooper, HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative. It is often the result of a toxic combination of transphobia, racism, and misogyny.
Breonna Hamilton was a 25-year-old black transgender woman who was fatally shot in Chicago, Illinois. On social media, Hamilton's mother described Breonna as an amazing person who touched so many people's hearts with her presence, and her memory will forever live on.
Kier Laprie Cartier, a 21-year-old black transgender woman, was fatally shot in Arlington, Texas on September 30th, 2021. Cartier was from Dallas, Texas, and graduated from Skyline High School. Her friends remembered her on social media as a very strong, independent person who always had my back through thick and thin.
Mel Groves, a 25-year-old black trans man, was fatally shot on October 11, 2021, in Jackson, Mississippi. Groves was a plant soil scientist at Alcorn State University who loved agriculture and animals. Groves is also an active member of the Knights and Orchid Society, a Southern-centered grassroots startup founded by and led by black, queer, transgender, and gender nonconforming people, supporting gender justice and LGBTQ visibility.
Royal Poetical Stars, a 26-year-old black trans woman, was fatally shot in Miami Gardens, Florida on October 2nd. She was a graduate of Florida Career College Vocational School, and on social media, she was remembered as the life of the party.
Zoella Zoe Rose Martinez, a 20-year-old Latina trans woman, was fatally shot in Maple Valley, Washington back on August 31st, 2021. Her body was later found in Seattle. Initial reports did not recognize Zoe as transgender until her family confirmed her identity this month. In a statement to HRC, Martinez's family shared that Zoe mastered makeup that accentuated her loving and caring personality. Zoe had a beautiful spirit. She always had a smile and had only kind words to say about others. Zoe was a born leader, and her peers acknowledged her as such.
Joe Acker, a white, 26-year-old transgender woman, was killed in Boise, Idaho on October 26, 2021. Acker was one of the victims of a tragic shooting at Boise Town Square Mall while working security. She had previously served in the U.S. Army as a forward observer. Her family said she ran toward the suspect to stop him, likely saving many lives. Her family also told the media that she was a hero and the type of person that always wanted to help people. They added that she will be greatly missed.
Jessie Hart, a white 42-year-old transgender woman, was killed in Bankz, Oregon. Her body was found on October 17, 2021. Prior to her death, Hart and her teenaged son, Caleb, had been struggling with housing insecurity, staying in hotel rooms through subsidized and nonprofit assistance. Later, they were staying in her black Saab. Unfortunately, not much is known about Hart's personal life. As transgender people, we often face so many challenges and uncertainties, including housing and employment security, said Tori Cooper, HRC Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative. Sadly, these situations can lead to greatly unfortunate outcomes. My heart and that of the community goes out to her son, Caleb.
Ricky Otomoro, aka True Starlet, was a 39-year-old Latina transgender woman who was fatally shot in Centralia, Washington on the night of October 30th or in the morning of October 31st, 2021. Otomoro was a popular and well-loved member of the Washington LGBTQ+ community. She performed under the drag name True Starlet and was a former Miss Gay Lewis County. Friends remembered her on social media, with one writing that she was an incredible advocate for the queer and trans community for nearly 20 years.
Markeisha Lawrence was a 28-year-old black trans woman. She was very humble, as one friend remembers her, and had a heart of gold. Lawrence's friend said that her favorite thing to do was to cook because she felt it filled the belly and fed the heart. Lawrence was fatally shot in South Carolina on November 4, 2021.
Jenny De Leon was a 25-year-old Latina transgender woman who was found dead in Tampa, Florida on November 2, 2021. De Leon attended PFLAG Tampa meetings and sought their help when she began transitioning. The organization wrote that Jenny was an enigmatic, bright soul with enough energy to fill any room.